Latest intelligence from the Centaurian network, MinCO continued. The Collective Council is in emergency session. 3 more senior members have resigned. Their fleets are refusing orders to suppress the rebellions. Se-Jin moved closer to the map, his weathered face reflected in its holographic glow. After 40 years in Earth's Space Force, he had never imagined seeing this day. The Collective, which had dominated galactic politics for over 20,000 years, was falling apart from within. They feared us because we united people, Se-Jin realized, speaking almost to himself. Not through force like they did, but through cooperation and mutual respect. That's why they tried to destroy us. MinCO looked up from her console. Sir, look at the pattern, Se-Jin explained, gesturing to the map. Every species that's broken away from the Collective. They're not just declaring independence. They're joining the alliance. They're choosing to stand together. The evidence was clear in the data streams. Former enemies were now fighting side by side. Species that the Collective had kept isolated from each other for millennia were forming trade agreements, cultural exchanges, mutual defense pacts. Message from the Arcturian High Command. A communications officer called out. They're requesting alliance support to liberate their colony worlds. The Arcturians. MinCO's surprise was evident. They've been the Collective's enforcers for thousands of years. Se-Jin's expression hardened. They were slaves too. They just wore fancier chains. Send word. Full alliance support authorized. And get me a channel to their fleet commander. The main screen flickered to life, showing an Arcturian bridge. Their species resembled tall, elegant insects with iridescent carapaces and compound eyes. The commander's translator converted their harmonic speech into Earth standard. Admiral Yoon, the Arcturian said, their antennae quivering with emotion. We owe humanity an apology. For generations, we helped maintain the system that once tried to destroy your species. The past is past, Se-Jin replied firmly. What matters is what we build now, together. New alerts flashed across the tactical display. Collective fleets were mobilizing, not to attack, but to surrender. Ship after ship was dropping out of formation, refusing orders to fire on their own people. Sir, MinCO said urgently. Priority message from Earth Command. The Collective Council has requested direct negotiations. They're offering unconditional surrender. A hush fell over the bridge. This was more than victory. It was vindication. Humanity hadn't just survived their attempted extinction. They had sparked a revolution that would reshape the galaxy. Send our response, Se-Jin ordered after a moment. The Alliance will accept their surrender, but only if they agree to face justice for all their crimes, not just those against humanity. As the message was transmitted, Se-Jin looked again at the galaxy map. The patterns of liberation were spreading like wildfire, crossing artificial boundaries the Collective had maintained for millennia. Species that had been kept apart were coming together, sharing knowledge, forming bonds. You know what the Collective never understood, he said to MinCO. They thought suppressing advancement would keep everyone weak. Instead, they just made us all stronger in different ways. Now those strengths are combining. The captain nodded. They created their own worst nightmare, a galaxy that remembered how to work together. More reports flooded in. The Collective's carefully maintained barriers were crumbling. Trade routes reopened. Ancient alliances were remembered and renewed. The galaxy was awakening from a long enforced slumber. Set course for Earth, Se-Jin ordered. The Council will want to coordinate the transition. We need to make sure this change brings freedom, not chaos. As the Reckoning's engines powered up, Se-Jin took one last look at the tactical display. The pattern was unmistakable now, not just victory, but transformation. The Collective had spent 20,000 years trying to prevent exactly this, a galaxy united not by force or fear, but by choice and mutual respect. They had failed, and in their failure, they had proven why humanity had been such a threat to them in the first place. Because humans didn't just fight for themselves, They fought for everyone's right to be free. The price of pride was being paid, not just by the collective, but by everyone who had forgotten that true strength comes from standing together, not standing alone. Hours passed as the Imperial fleet's advanced sensors probed every corner of human space. Officers came and went, bringing reports that all said the same thing. The humans had no significant military capabilities. They were, by all measurable standards, helpless before the might of the Empire. "My lord," Du Hyun finally said, "there is one unusual reading we can't quite explain." He highlighted a section of the scan data. "Some of their mining vessels are emitting energy signatures we've never seen before. Our computers can't classify them." Kaiho leaned forward, studying the readings. "Some new form of weapon." "Unknown, sir. The energy patterns don't match any known weapon system. They're more similar to their mining equipment. But there's something about them our sensors can't quite analyze." The Grand Marshal felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. The humans were clearly inferior in every way, yet they acted as if they held all the advantages. Their ships moved without apparent purpose. Their vessels continued civilian operations as if the Imperial fleet didn't exist. And that laughter. "Send a probe," Keiho ordered suddenly. "Just one. Target one of their outer mining stations. Let's see how they react to a show of force." As the probe launched toward its target, Keiho watched the human vessels carefully. They made no move to intercept it. They didn't even seem to notice it. Their ships continued their apparently random movements, their mining operations continued uninterrupted, and their communication channels remained filled with casual civilian chatter. "Either they are fools," Keiho said quietly, "or they know something we don't." His mandibles clicked again. "And I have never encountered a species of fools that achieved space travel." The probe was approaching its target now. Soon, they would have their answer. But deep in his armor-plated chest, Grand Marshal Keiho felt something he hadn't experienced since his first battle, a creeping sense of dread. The laughter of the humans echoed in his memory, and for the first time in centuries, he wondered if perhaps the Empire had made a terrible mistake. Deep within the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, hidden inside what appeared to be an ordinary mining facility, Commander Haenul watched the tactical display with a satisfied smile. The massive holographic projection showed hundreds of human ships moving across the solar system in what seemed like complete chaos. Mining vessels changed course without warning. Cargo ships took unnecessarily long routes between planets. Passenger liners altered their speed randomly. To any outside observer, it looked like humanity had collectively forgotten how to pilot their vessels properly. "Alpha Group, adjust your mining pattern by 3 degrees, Haenul ordered calmly. Beta Group, increase speed by 12% for exactly 43 seconds, then resume standard velocity." Her voice was steady, almost cheerful, as she continued orchestrating what appeared to be madness. The command center buzzed with quiet activity. Officers at their stations monitored the movements of both human and Imperial ships, making tiny adjustments to their carefully planned chaos. The room itself was carved directly into the asteroid, its walls lined with screens showing every aspect of their operation. A door slid open with a soft hiss, and Operations Director Sunmai entered. Her uniform was crisp, her expression curious as she observed the tactical display. "Status report," she asked, walking to stand beside Haenul. "Phase 1 is proceeding exactly as planned," Haenul replied, gesturing to the display. "The Empire's tactical AI is doing exactly what we predicted, attempting to identify patterns where there are none. They're completely missing what's actually happening." She highlighted a section of the display showing the Imperial fleet's sensor suites. "They've run the same analysis 17 times in the last hour." Sunmi nodded, watching as a mining vessel suddenly changed its course for seemingly no reason. "And our real preparations?" Sunmi looked up from her readings, eyes bright with understanding. "Yes, sir. They reset to the same cycle every time they regenerate. Their technology is powerful but predictable. Lieutenant Lee, bring up the debris field analysis. The tactical display shifted, showing hundreds of pieces of destroyed colonial infrastructure floating in complex patterns. Park studied the field intently, a plan forming in his mind. "Sir," Lee interjected, "the Krell are moving to cut off our escape vectors." "Good." Park's response drew surprised looks from his bridge crew. "They think they know what we're going to do. Let's show them how humans fight when cornered." He quickly outlined his plan. The crew dubbed it the Sewell Gambit, a complex series of maneuvers using the debris field not just as cover, but as a weapon. The Dauntless would need to execute precise movements while timing their shots perfectly with the Krell shield cycles. "It's insane," Lee said, then smiled. "They'll never expect it." Park keyed the ship-wide comm. "All hands, secure for extreme maneuvers. Engineering, I need everything you can give the engines. This is going to get rough." The Dauntless's engines flared to life as Lee took them into the debris field at full speed. Pieces of destroyed platforms and satellites whirled around them as she threaded the ship through impossibly tight gaps. The Krell ships followed, their bulk making them slower to maneuver. First target approaching optimal firing position. Sun Mai reported, monitoring the shield cycles. 15 seconds to synchronization. Park watched as the nearest Krell ship grew larger on their view screen. They were so close they could see individual weapon emplacements on its hull. "Prepare for attack pattern Delta. Engineering, status of the mining lasers." "Barely holding together, sir," Kim replied. "But they'll fire." The Dauntless suddenly cut its engines, using the debris field's gravity to swing around in a slingshot maneuver. The move brought them up underneath the first Krell ship, just as its shields entered the vulnerable part of their cycle. Fire. The modified mining lasers struck true, slicing through the weakened shields and cutting deep into the enemy vessel's power core. The massive ship erupted in a series of explosions, its hull breaking apart. But there was no time to celebrate. The second Krell ship was already adjusting its position, bringing its main weapons to bear. The Dauntless dove through the expanding cloud of debris from the destroyed vessel, using it as cover. Shield cycle data on the second target locked. Sun Mai called out. Same pattern. Lee executed another series of tight maneuvers, using pieces of debris to screen their approach. The Krell ship fired repeatedly, but its powerful weapons were designed for large targets, not the agile Dauntless weaving through the chaos. The human ship emerged from the debris field directly above the enemy vessel. Their mining lasers fired again, catching the Krell ship at its most vulnerable moment. The results were devastating. Its entire weapons array exploded, leaving the massive ship crippled. The third and final Krell vessel, witnessing the destruction of its companions, suddenly turned to flee. But Park had anticipated this reaction. The Dauntless was already moving to cut off its escape route, positioning itself perfectly for a precision strike on the enemy's engines. "One more shot," Park said calmly. "Make it count." The mining lasers fired one last time, their energy beams striking the Krell ship's engine housing just as its shields cycled. The massive vessel's propulsion systems exploded, leaving it dead in space. Silence fell over the Dauntless's bridge as the crew realized what they had accomplished. 3 enemy ships, each many times their size and technological capability, had been defeated through human ingenuity and courage. "Send to Fleet Command," Park ordered, allowing himself a small smile. "The Krell are not invincible." Repeat, the Krell are not invincible. As damage control teams rushed to repair their battered ship, the crew of the Dauntless knew they had just changed the course of the war. They had proven that sometimes the greatest victories come not from superior strength or technology, but from the willingness to try the impossible. The battle that would become known as the Sewell Gambit marked the beginning of humanity's rise as a major power in the galaxy. But for the exhausted crew of the Dauntless, it was simply proof of what they had always believed, that courage, creativity, and determination could overcome any odds. Subspace communications lit up across the galaxy as news of the impossible victory spread. The UES Dauntless, still bearing scorch marks and hastily patched hull breaches from its battle with the Krell, maintained position above the saved Miran colony. Engineering teams worked around the clock to repair the damage, while Commander Park spent hours sending detailed reports of their encounter back to Fleet Command. "Sir, you need to see this," Lieutenant Lee called out from her station. She brought up the long-range sensor display, showing multiple ships dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. Park straightened in his command chair, muscles tense. "Identity. First group appears to be Astra vessels," Lee reported, her eyes widening. "3 of them. And behind them." "Sir, I'm reading Nor bioships." "At least 5. The bridge crew watched in amazement as more ships continued to arrive. The Astra vessels were beautiful things, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight like massive diamonds. The Nor ships were equally impressive, but completely different, organic vessels that looked more like space-going whales than conventional spacecraft. "We're receiving transmission requests from both fleets," Communications Officer Baiho announced. "They're asking permission to approach." Park nodded. "Put them through to the main screen." The view screen split, showing 2 very different alien commanders. The Astra captain was a crystalline being whose faceted surface shimmered with internal light. The Nor leader was a graceful, almost ethereal creature floating in what appeared to be a living command center. "Commander Park," the Astra captain's translated voice rang like chimes. "Word of your victory over the Krell has reached our worlds. We come seeking alliance." "Our people, too, have suffered Krell attacks," the Nor leader added, their bioluminescent patterns shifting with emotion. "Until now, we thought resistance was futile. But you have shown us otherwise." More ships continued to arrive. Refugee vessels from dozens of species, each bearing stories of Krell aggression. Park found himself organizing emergency meetings with alien captains in the Dauntless's conference room, now crowded with beings of all shapes and sizes. "The mining laser strategy won't work again," Park explained, showing tactical displays of their battle. "The Krell will have adapted, but the principle remains the same. They're predictable. Their strength is their weakness." An Astra captain raised a crystalline appendage. "Our ships can generate focused light beams of immense power, but we never considered using them as weapons. Our bioships can produce electromagnetic pulses," a Nor commander added. "Perhaps, if coordinated correctly." Park watched as the alien leaders began sharing ideas, centuries of peaceful existence giving way to the necessity of war. The Dauntless's tactical room became a laboratory of innovation as different species combined their technologies in ways never before imagined. "Sir," Lee approached Park during a brief break. "Fleet Command has responded to our reports. They're sending reinforcements, but it will take weeks for them to arrive." Park looked out at the growing fleet of alien vessels surrounding the Dauntless. "Perhaps that's for the best, Lieutenant. This isn't just humanity's fight anymore." Training exercises began almost immediately. The Dauntless led mixed groups of ships through combat drills, teaching Earth military tactics while learning the unique capabilities of each species. The Astra crystal ships proved incredibly effective at focusing and amplifying energy weapons. The Nor bioships could generate massive electromagnetic fields that disrupted enemy systems. Myra's display showed the complex web of quantum targeting solutions, each weapon platform linked to multiple targets. The entire Imperial fleet was caught in a 3-dimensional grid of overlapping fields of fire. There would be no escape. "Enemy shields are at maximum power," she reported. "They're trying to power up their weapons, but our quantum interference is keeping them locked down." Do-hyun nodded slowly, studying the tactical display. 1,000 alien ships, each capable of destroying cities, now trapped like insects in amber. Their superior attitude had led them straight into humanity's trap. "Time remaining on surrender window?" he asked. 15 seconds, sir," Mayray responded. No response to our message. They appear to be attempting to break through our communications blackout. The general looked up at the screens showing the world leaders. These men and women represented every nation, every people on Earth. Centuries of secret preparation, of maintaining the illusion of division, while working together in secret, had led to this moment. One by one, each leader gave a silent nod. The decision was unanimous. 10 seconds, Mei Rei announced. Du Hyun thought of all the generations that had worked toward this day. Scientists who had developed technologies beyond even the Empire's understanding. Engineers who had built vast underground cities and hidden weapon platforms. Intelligence operators who had maintained Earth's primitive facade. 5 seconds. The quantum displays showed the Imperial ships still struggling to respond. Their sensors were overwhelmed, their weapons unable to lock onto targets that existed partially in other dimensions, their advanced shields suddenly seeming primitive compared to Earth's technology. 3 seconds. Mei Rei's fingers moved across the interface, initiating the final attack sequence. Each weapon platform hummed with power as quantum singularities spun up to full capacity. 2 seconds. The targeting grid locked into its final configuration. 1,000 Imperial ships, about to learn the price of underestimating humanity. 1 second. Do Hyun took a deep breath. Centuries of preparation came down to this moment. Execute, he commanded. Mei Rei's fingers touched the quantum interface. In that instant, thousands of weapon platforms fired simultaneously. Space itself seemed to twist as quantum beams crossed the void, each one carrying enough energy to shatter a planet. The Imperial ships' shields flared brilliant white as they encountered weapons operating on principles they couldn't comprehend. Metal hulls designed to withstand antimatter explosions offered no protection against quantum phase attacks. In exactly 3 seconds, 999 Imperial ships ceased to exist. They didn't explode or break apart. They simply vanished, their very atoms dispersed across multiple dimensions. Only the flagship remained, held immobile in a quantum stasis field, its crew forced to watch as their entire fleet was erased from existence. Attack complete, Mei Rei reported calmly. 999 confirmed eliminations. Flagship secured for boarding actions. The command center erupted in quiet cheers and sighs of relief. Centuries of preparation, of hiding and waiting, had paid off. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in a way that would never be forgotten. Du Hyun looked at the single remaining Imperial ship on his display. Prepare boarding teams. It's time to send our message to the Empire. The first interstellar war in human history had lasted exactly 3 seconds, and humanity had won without losing a single life. Commander Sungmin stood frozen on his bridge, watching the impossible scene before him. Where moments ago 1,000 Imperial ships had dominated space around Earth, now only scattered particles remained, dispersed across dimensions he couldn't comprehend. His mighty flagship, pride of the Imperial fleet, hung powerless in space, caught in an energy field that defied Imperial science. The ship's internal sensors blazed with warnings as multiple breaches appeared along its hull. Not explosions or cutting beams. The humans simply phased through solid metal, as if it weren't there. Sungmin's crew drew their weapons, though their hands shook as they aimed at the entry points. Stand down, Sungmin ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. Those weapons will be useless. Through the breaches came humans in battle suits that seemed to flicker between dimensions. Their armor wasn't bulky like Imperial combat gear. It moved like liquid metal, conforming perfectly to their bodies. Each suit glowed with subtle patterns of energy that hurt Sungmin's eyes to look at directly. Leading the boarding party was Colonel Mei Rei, her armor distinguished by the unified Earth insignia, a symbol that represented humanity's true face, not the divided nations they had pretended to be. She moved with casual grace, the artificial gravity and life support systems of the Imperial ship having no effect on her suit's function. Commander Sungmin, Mei Rei's voice carried clearly despite her sealed armor. Your ship is now under Earth's control. Any resistance will be met with the same response your fleet just witnessed. Captain He Newell stepped forward, her hand still on her sidearm. How? How did you hide all this? Our intelligence reports were exactly what we wanted you to see, Mayray replied. More humans in battle suits spread throughout the bridge, securing stations with practiced efficiency. Every primitive satellite, every outdated weapon, every squabbling nation, all part of a performance centuries in the making. Sung Min watched as his crew was systematically disarmed. The humans didn't use force. Their suits simply generated localized fields that caused Imperial weapons to dissolve into component atoms. Your technology, he said quietly. It's impossible. No civilization could advance this far without being noticed. Mayray's helmet retracted like liquid flowing backward, revealing her face. We detected your first probe 200 years ago. Instead of announcing ourselves, we chose to watch and learn. Everything you thought you knew about Earth was carefully crafted to bring you here today. More boarding teams reported in from throughout the ship. The humans weren't just securing the vessel, they were downloading its entire database, accessing systems that the Imperio thought were impenetrable. The divided nations. He knew last. The primitive weapons. The nuclear missiles. Props. Mayray said simply. Very convincing ones. We needed you to believe we were an easy target. Your empire has a habit of conquering worlds you consider primitive. We decided to use that against you. Sung Min sank into his command chair, the full weight of their failure crushing down on him. 1,000 ships, he whispered. The most powerful fleet ever assembled. Were never a threat to us, Mayray finished. Your most advanced weapons are centuries behind what we've achieved. While you were watching our fake military bases, our real technology was so far beyond your sensors' capability to detect that you literally couldn't see it. The human boarding teams had finished securing the ship. Through the view screen, Sung Min could see more of their advanced vessels decloaking, ships that made his flagship look like a primitive construction by comparison. What happens now? He asked. Mayray's expression was neither triumphant nor cruel, simply professional. Now you carry a message back to your empire. Humanity is not primitive, not divided, and not interested in becoming part of your civilization. We've watched you long enough to know what you are, and we chose to remain hidden until we were ready. She gestured, and a quantum field surrounded Sung Min and his senior officers. You'll be given proof of what happened here, proof that can't be denied or altered. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity's isolation was a choice, and that choice has now ended. As Sung Min was led away from his bridge, he took one last look at Earth through the view screen. The planet's seemingly primitive exterior was gone, replaced by the true face of human civilization. A world of technology so advanced it appeared magical. His empire's greatest fleet had lasted 3 seconds against them. And now he had to tell them why. The crystalline spires of Nexus Prime seemed less impressive now as Commander Sung Min walked through the halls toward the Imperial Council chamber. His once pristine uniform was still marked with scorch patterns from Earth's quantum weapons, deliberately left as evidence of what he had witnessed. Message from the Vengeance, Minji reported. Captain Song reports all ships in position and awaiting your command. Taiwan straightened his uniform. Send the order. Execute Operation Remembrance. All ships, Combat Protocol Alpha. The fleet moved as one, their engines flaring bright against the darkness. The formation they took was unlike anything seen in modern space combat. Patterns developed by their ancestors, refined through millennia of warfare that the collective had tried to erase from history. Sir, Minji said quietly, the collective doesn't stand a chance, do they? Taiwan watched as the fleet accelerated toward their jump points. They made 3 mistakes, Commander. First, they tried to destroy us instead of working with us. Second, they failed to finish the job. But their biggest mistake. He gestured to the tactical display, where signals from more Alliance ships were appearing. They showed the rest of the galaxy exactly what they were capable of. Now everyone knows what they really are. The first ships vanished in flashes of light as they jumped to FTL. Soon, the collective would learn that humanity hadn't just recovered their ancient technology. They'd improved upon it. The ships now heading toward their space were more advanced than anything that had existed during humanity's first rise to power. "Send word to all Alliance members," Ta-1 ordered. "Phase 1 begins now. Let's remind the galaxy why they tried so hard to make us forget who we were." As the last ships jumped away, leaving Mars' orbit empty once more, Ta-1 reflected on the irony of it all. The collective had spent 12,000 years maintaining their power through fear and manipulation. Now those same tactics had created the very thing they had tried to prevent: a unified opposition led by the species they had tried to destroy. The storm was about to break, and this time, humanity wasn't facing it alone. The alarms blared through the EDS Vengeance as collective ships dropped out of FTL around Proxima Centauri. Captain Jin-Woo Park stood calmly on his bridge, watching as enemy vessels materialized against the backdrop of stars. Their crystalline hulls caught the light of the system's red dwarf sun, making them look like predatory fish circling their prey. 37 collective warships detected, Combat Officer Lee reported, her hands dancing over the tactical display. "Standard attack formation. They're moving to surround the colony." Jin-Woo studied the enemy deployment. The collective had sent what they considered an overwhelming force, enough ships to subdue a dozen normal worlds. They expected to find a primitive human colony, defended by basic ships and outdated weapons. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Status of our fleet?" Jin-Woo asked, his voice steady despite the tension filling the bridge. "All ships reporting ready, Captain. The Remembrance and Justice are in position behind Proxima's moon. The Legacy Group is holding at the system's edge. Colony defense systems are online and tracking targets." The captain allowed himself a small smile. The collective hadn't even noticed the ships hidden in the system's shadow zones, positions mapped out by their ancestors for exactly this kind of defense. "Let them make the first move," he ordered. "Let's see if they remember how to fight a real war." The enemy fleet moved with mechanical precision, following tactical doctrines that hadn't changed in millennia. Their lead ships broadcast the standard collective ultimatum: surrender or be destroyed. The message was delivered in the patronizing tone they reserved for lesser species. "Send our response," Jin-Woo commanded. The communications officer activated the ship's main transmitter. Across every collective vessel, screens lit up with the image of humanity's recovered archives. They showed scenes of burning human worlds, of collective ships destroying civilian colonies, of the systematic erasure of human civilization. The message ended with a simple statement: "We remember." "Enemy ships accelerating," Lee reported. "They're launching fighters." Jin-Woo nodded, exactly as expected. "Signal the fleet. Execute Maneuver Phoenix." The Vengeance's engines flared to life as the massive warship began a series of movements that defied conventional space combat doctrine. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, the human vessels seemed to scatter in random directions. To the collective commanders, it must have looked like panic, until they realized too late what was really happening. "Show them what humanity remembers," Jin-Woo ordered as his fleet executed maneuvers that hadn't been seen in millennia. Ships moved in three-dimensional patterns that turned their apparent weakness into strength. The collective's formation, designed to overwhelm a centralized defense, now found itself split and isolated. "First blood to us," Lee announced as the Remembrance Group emerged from behind Proxima, catching 3 enemy cruisers in a devastating crossfire. The collective ship's advanced shields, designed to stop modern weapons, proved useless against the hybrid technology humanity had developed. Ancient principles enhanced by modern innovation. "Enemy fleet attempting to regroup," Tactical reported. "They're falling back to secondary positions." Jin-Woo watched as the collective commanders tried to adapt to a style of warfare they had never expected to face again. Their ships were technically superior in many ways, but their tactics were stale, predictable. They had spent too long fighting opponents who copied their methods. "Launch Phase 2, he ordered. "Let's show them how much we've learned." The Legacy Group, which had been holding position at the system's edge, suddenly accelerated to attack speed. But instead of joining the main battle, they executed a series of precise jumps, appearing and disappearing around the battlefield. Each jump lasted only seconds, but each brought devastating volleys of fire from unexpected angles. Collective fleet showing signs of confusion, Lee reported, unable to keep the satisfaction from her voice. Their formation is breaking down. On the tactical display, the elegant battle plan of the enemy was dissolving into chaos. Their attempts to counter the human attacks only exposed them to more damage. Ships designed for long-range combat found themselves in knife-fight distances where their weapons were less effective. Vessels trying to maintain formation were picked off by precisely targeted strikes. 7 enemy ships disabled, Tactical announced. 3 more showing critical damage. The rest are falling back to. Wait. The officer paused, checking his readings. Captain, they're calling for reinforcements. Jin Woo had expected this. The collective never admitted defeat. They just committed more forces until resistance became impossible. But humanity had planned for this too. Signal the Alliance fleet, he ordered. Execute Operation Sunrise. As if answering his command, dozens of new ships appeared at the system's edge. The Centaurians had arrived, along with vessels from 3 other species who had broken free from collective control. Their arrival transformed what had been a decisive victory into something more, a statement to the galaxy that humanity was not fighting alone. Enemy fleet in full retreat, Lee reported as the last collective ships jumped away, leaving their damaged companions behind. Should we pursue? Jin Woo shook his head. Let them go. Let them tell their masters what happened here. Let them explain how the primitives they tried to destroy have not only returned but evolved. The Battle of Proxima Centauri lasted less than 2 hours, but its impact would echo across the galaxy. Humanity had not just defended their colony, they had demonstrated a level of military prowess that sent shockwaves through the collective's carefully maintained power structure. As rescue ships moved to secure the disabled enemy vessels, Jin Woo looked out at the battlefield. 12,000 years ago, humanity had faced this same enemy and lost everything. Today, they had proven that history need not repeat itself, not when you remember your past and learn from it. The thunder of humanity's return had finally rolled across the stars, and its echo would shake the galaxy to its foundations. Fleet Admiral Se Jin Yoon watched the galaxy map spread across the bridge of the EDS reckoning. Points of light flickered and changed color as reports streamed in from every sector. Red markers representing collective control were rapidly turning green as system after system declared independence. Another uprising in the Orion Arm, reported Captain Min Seo Kim. The Arcturians have taken control of 3 major collective bases. Their defense fleets joined the rebels instead of fighting. Se Jin nodded, studying the tactical overlay. The Arcturians had been among the collective's most loyal enforcers for millennia. Their defection was sending shockwaves through the entire power structure. Show me the prison world reports, he ordered. New markers appeared on the map, dozens of planets where the collective had imprisoned species they deemed too aggressive or culturally dangerous. Many of these worlds were now free, their inhabitants joining the growing alliance of free worlds.